Shri Matre Namaha. In our Indian tradition, we have a lot of Vidyas. What are they? These Vidyas are in different disciplines of knowledge. For example, physics, chemistry, biology, zoology, etc. But some kinds of discipline of knowledge is called Vidya. Especially in our traditional learning, we have a lot of Vidyas like Vyakarana, Tarka Sangraha, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, Jyotisha, Kalpa, etc. They are also a kind of Vidya. But among these all kinds of Vidyas, there is a particular Vidya is called Atma Vidya. Especially we can see this Atma Vidya from Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. Especially in Bhagavad Gita, we can find lots of examples through Lord Krishna and greatness of Atma Vidya. It denotes the leading life with disciplinary way. After that, we have lots of Vidyas. In those Vidyas, we can say Aadhyaatma Vidya is one of the most important one. Aadhyaatma Vidya means spiritual knowledge. Lack of spiritual knowledge, nowadays we find everywhere havoc, mean confusion, chaos, because people do not have spiritual knowledge. Adhyatma Vidya means not only it is like reading of Ramayana, Mahabharata, or chanting of Bhagavad Gita Shloka and chanting of mantras from various Vedas and all. First of all, Adhyatma Vidya. One should know about oneself. That is called Atma Vidya. From that, it comes Adhyatma Vidya. Unless you know about your spirit, you cannot understand the values of spiritual dignity. Therefore, Adhyatma Vidya stands before all Vidyas to lead us to a right path. Otherwise, it cannot make us to be disciplined one in the society. Adhyatma Vidya always give us a sort of solace whenever we are in distress, grief, or miseries. There should be a lot of sources we have to know in spiritual Vidya. Through Adhyatma Vidya or spiritual knowledge, we can gain surely the essence of the values of our morals, ethics, etc. to lead a blissful life which will make us to proceed in a proper way to overcome or surpass many hurdles. Therefore, spiritual knowledge is the most important knowledge than other external knowledge like physics, chemistry, mathematics, etc. Those knowledge give us a sort of financial support, etc. But Adhyatma Vidya gives stability in one's life to the mind and body. Therefore, spiritual knowledge is the only source to overcome the troubles whatever occur in our life. We should be aware of the forthcoming troubles. Therefore, we should know Adhyatma Vidya. It is only the solution for all the pollutions. Unless we possess the spiritual knowledge, we can't understand about ourselves. How can we understand the feelings of others? Unless we understand ours, is it not? It's impossible. Therefore, one should possess spiritual knowledge. That is called Aadhyaatma Vidya. Basing on this, today I took the topic of Aadhyaatma Vidya before you start with prayer. Jnananandamayam devam nirmala spatikakritim adharam sarva vidyanam hayagrevam. There are various disciplines of knowledge like physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, etc. A discipline of knowledge is called Vidya in Sanskrit. In our traditional learning, there are Vidyas like Vyakarana, Jyotisha, Kalpa, Tarka, Mimamsa, etc. etc. Among these Vidyas, one Vidya stands out, that is called Atma Vidya. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna shows the greatness of this Vidya by stating, I am the Aadhyaatma Vidya among the Vidyas. What is the Aadhyaatma Vidya? Let us understand. Let us find out. Aadhyaatma Vidya is spiritual knowledge. The greatness of Aadhyaatma Vidya is owing to its result. Unlike other Vidyas which give limited results, the results one gets from this knowledge is eternal and unsurpassed, which is called Moksha, mean liberation. The subject matter of Aadhyaatma Vidya, as the name suggests, is nothing but the Atman, mean the self. Therefore, Aadhyaatma Vidya can be called self-knowledge. All of us have ignorance. We have ignorance regarding a language, ignorance of distance, place, etc. The greatest ignorance is the ignorance of our own self. It is called self-ignorance. We don't know that what our real nature is. This is very much evident when we ask questions regarding death. Is it? We all wonder what will happen to us after death. Whether the end of the body is the end of our existence, or we do continue to exist even after the full of the body. Further, Aadhyaatma Vidya answers questions regarding the reality of the universe and universal phenomena. We all have questions regarding the origin of the universe, the creator of the universe, etc. We get a question, is there God? If yes, where is he? If we find him, what is his nature? Afterwards, what is the relationship between the man or between me and God? All such questions are answered by Aadhyaatma Vidya. Now understand? Aadhyaatma Vidya gives some such a sort of answers for the questions whatever we arise about our soul, about ourselves. What are the sources of Aadhyaatma Vidya? Our primary scriptures are the Vedas. That which cannot be known by means of direct perception, and inference is known only through the Vedas. Therefore, Veda is pramana, a means of knowledge. The Vedas consist of Karma Kanda, the ritual portion, and Jnana Kanda, the knowledge portion. The ritual portion consists of different rituals, values, etc., which are necessary for the spiritual growth of an individual. The Jnana Kanda is called Vedanta because it is at the end of the Veda. Therefore, Veda Anta Vedanta. They consist of Upanishads, which deal with self-knowledge. Smritis are the secondary scriptures written based on the teachings of the Vedas. Bhagavad Gita is a Smriti text which presents the essential teachings of all the Upanishads. There are various other texts written by various ancient sages as well as modern authors presenting the teachings of the scriptures systematically. Who is Guru? Our Shastras very clearly declare that one cannot gain knowledge of the self by means of reasoning or speculation. The scriptures are the only means for gaining self-knowledge. Again, the scriptures cannot be understood by oneself. The need for a teacher is emphasized in the tradition. Therefore, a seeker of self-knowledge is advised to go to a teacher and learn the scriptural teaching from him. Next, let us see the preparation. The teaching of the scriptures will work only when one is prepared. The preparation is in terms of purity of mind. A mind attracted to materialistic enjoyments is not fit for self-knowledge. The aspirant must be sincerely interested in spirituality and result thereof. Purity of mind is accomplished by means of karma yoga is a spiritual discipline in which one performs work as an offering to God, accepts the results as a grace of God. In other words, it is a prayerful life performing one's duty as a will of God. Then what happens to the result? The result of self-knowledge is called moksha or mukti, means liberation. It can be explained as finding completeness within one's self. We always feel that we can be happier if we accomplish something higher. When we find that we are complete in our own nature, there is nothing more to be accomplished. We have found the perennial source of happiness within ourselves. Then we are no longer disturbed by the external conditions. We are able to withstand shocks in life. Moreover, the scriptures reveal that the knower of the self does not have a rebirth. Punarjanma na vidyate. He is free from the cycle of rebirth. The Upanishads are well known as what is known as Aadhyaatma Vidya, meaning thereby an insight into the self, the wisdom of the self, knowledge of the self, an experience which cannot in any manner whatsoever alienate itself into other than what it is. Our experience in this world today, normally speaking, is involved in what can be designated as anatman, means the non-self, as it is called, because it is our daily experience, an experience of what we are not. We see the world, we see the people, we see human relations, and all that we can consider as life. And today's parlance is far removed from the true self. The characteristic of a self is what usually eludes the grasp of the sense organs in the search for the self of a true satisfaction of themselves. In this world of anatman or non-self, we are actually searching for the self very mysteriously, maybe very unfortunately. Though in as much as anatman or a not self, the intention behind our pursuit of anatman is actually the pursuit of atman. Unknowingly, groping in the dark as it were, we are searching for our own selves and search for the Atman in a locality where it is not. The characteristic of the world has to be distinguished from the characteristic of selfhood. This peculiar distinction between the two principles is what becomes difficult for the mind and the senses to grasp. And it is precisely this non self, as it is called. Because it is difficult, that compels the senses together with the mind to run in direction totally opposite to the self, through though for the purpose of the grasp of the self only. In the commentary on the Brahma Sutra, Adi Shankara, perhaps while expounding the meaning of the fourth sutra, he makes a reference to three kinds of selves, to which we have made some reference earlier in our sessions. This is to say, there is a self which we pursue through the sense organs, which is the object self, the Vishaya, mean to anatma tattva, the gauna tatman, as it is usually called the secondary self. An object of affection is also an object of such attraction and self-identification in an impaired way that it mostly passes for the self. The object of love, which is called gaunatman, is apparently a kind of self, for that state of affairs is erroneously attempted to be identified with the true self erroneously, because of this fact that is outside the self cannot be identified with the self. The outsideness of the object is difficult, involved in the actual possession, identification, and the expected enjoyment thereof. All objects which are beloved to the sense organs are incapable of that individual identification which they are actually expecting in the adventure or pursuits. The sense organs externalize the consciousness. The force of the movement of the sense is very so powerfully extrovert that the consciousness, which otherwise cannot be extraordinary, is changed with the velocity of movement in an externalized fashion, and the self also moves, as it were, they not really in the direction of an outside object, envelop it, as it were, in terms of the activity of the mind, and is supposed to feel itself in that object intentionally or in a totally turvy fascism. The king acting as a fool, as it were, in the drama. The Atman becomes the fool to smooth or some extent, we may say, in a metaphorical state, while it begins to behold itself in what is it not. The whole of our life in this world is this picture of the dramatic activity of the sense organs tomfordly. We may say, this is the whole of life. It is a pursuit of a twofold non-atman. Once it enters, it is known as gaunatman, to which I made reference just now. The background of altercation, now the object of attraction, love, affected the attachment, then the body, which is called Aadhyaatman. This is the whole life of life in the world. All our projects and plans of work in the world throughout the beneficial purpose. Such values are related to the physical body, which is Mithyatman. Whatever the source, in one sense, we may say this world is a dream. It is a dream because it is a drama played by consciousness in the same manner as it pump it or thereof. And there is must be a medium of perception. Pramana pratyakshana for the time being. The same is the structure of waking awareness. There is an object that is known in the world with all its contents, and there is a subject, yourself, myself, everyone from one's own point of view is a perceiver of the world. But the perceiver is neither the Gaunatman nor the Mithyatman. The body is constituted of the five elements earth, water, fire, air, and sky. The object that is perceived also constituted of the very same elements. It is as if a material embodiment collides with another material embodiment. In the language of Bhagavad Gita, Guna Guneshu Vartante. The three gunas of Prakriti, which constitute all bodies subjectively as all well as objectivity, are unconscious in their nature. Prakriti is non-conscious, and all the bodies subjectivity as well objectivity are unconscious in their nature. Prakriti is non-conscious, and all the bodies constituted of the Prakriti, the physical body of ours, and the embodied form of all objects are equally constituted, means distributed of the Gunatraya, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. By an analysis of our experience, we will know that neither the hard work, or neither the body nor the mental operations are actually the conscious principle. A consciousness that is responsible for the vision of life is not for the vision, and that body, not even the mind. The Avastatraya Visheshana will tell us that though in the working condition we appear to be physically conscious, we are not so conscious in dream. There is only a mental operation taking place, but in the deep sleep state. Even the mind subsides, but we exist still. We exist just that much only, and nothing is more can be said about yourself. In that state, the particular essentiality of our being, which is the true sense of life, can be designated only as asti. The definition of that particular state is impossible. Why? Because there is no quality or adjunct which can be associated with that condition, which was just beingness. But it was a state beingness, but it was a state business associated with awareness. We are generally unconscious in the state of sleep, but the usual, well-known analysis and comparison of the waking state with the sleeping condition brings out the poet that the memory that we have of our own having slept the previous day is accountable only on the acceptance of the fact of there being something like a consciousness even in the state of deep sleep, because no mere memory is possible unless there were no many is possible. It is always associated with consciousness, is always not. This analysis is a proof of the fact of our essentiality being infinite in our nature, our time being as astitva, pure being, which is one with consciousness. It is Sat and Chit, not and but, Sat Chit as an indivisible compound, and that being consciousness which with the sun self urges, which is not the Gaunatman and which is not the Misyatman. It does not merely be both. Sat Chit, it is also indivisible in nature. That is to say, it is no infinite, it is not located somewhere. It is not true that it is inside our body. It is ubiquitous, all pervading, because the notion of the furniture, because of this fact, is always unthinkable. Now, how consciousness can become an object and can become a Gaunatman, which is actually what is happening in daily life. This is the reason why I say the world, but like we say, the world is like dream, because in dream the actuality of selfhood becomes an apparent externality. The object childhood or objecthood, we can say, the apparent nature of the object perception in dream makes it a dream. Otherwise, we would not call it a dream simply. The character of the what we call a dream arises because of being impossible for a perceiving consciousness to become other than what it is. Because consciousness is infinite, it cannot become an obligate itself. Infinite cannot have an object before it. Thus, on this foundation of an analysis of the invisibility of the consciousness, it will follow the infinitude of the perceiver of anything in the world. But it has stood as an object we see it before us, but we can be convinced as a really existing thing. The importance of our precising consciousness as an object thereof, certainly we should describe this wood as the dream project. That is to say, the objects are asti, bhati, priya, nama, rupa, are supposed to be the fivefold features of everything in the world. Asti means beingness, everything is bhati, everything is known, priya, everything that can be a desirable things. It has a name because it has a form and its rupa. But the nama and the rupa, and they took back after showing these to the people. But the nama and the rupa, nama form complex, is not the real character of analyzing anything. The particular configuration of personality is called due to a peculiar permutation and the embodiment of the three gunas of Prakriti and the combination of self-act changes from the one time to another time. Also, a cycle of another. So that no individuality can be said to understand, to be understood by the people. So, Nama Rupa Panchatantram. Nama Rupa Panchatantram means is not a final reality. It is a fluctuation. It is a transitory movement. It changes from moment to moment, not merely from day to day. It is continuous from day to day. It is a continuous process, continuous flow, like a flame of a lamp or the movement of a river is never expects. Finally, Adhyatmika Rama means it is a kind of security which provides all the human beings to understand the buddhi and the intellect. And there is a causal shot inside called Anandatma Vidya, Leda Anandamaya Kosha. The consciousness is hidden inside, as it were, covered with, as it low, covered with a bushel by a snake, completely smothered by the activity of this aquarium, so called these kinds of Panchakosha, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, these are all used a kind of purify our souls, especially let us prove our body than mind. Thus, we can say Acharya Shankara explained about Aadhyaatma Vidya in detail. Ekantaya Kalyana Nade Nade Dram Shri Venkatavasaya Srinivasaya Mangalam Mangala Sastra Premadacharya Progamaihi Sarvaesha Purvairacharya Satkritaya Mangalam.